Hey everybody, this is Structural Steve again, and in this video I'm going to show you how to do bridge, plan, and elevation sheets in the FDOT Connect workspace.
Alright, so I'm going to start off in my main bridge model file here, but I don't necessarily want to put my P&E sheets here or any sheets in here, because if I did that, then if I wanted to be in this model modifying something or tweaking something, somebody else wanted to be modifying the P&E sheets at the same time, we couldn't do that if it's in the same file, because these are single user access files. So first thing I'm going to do is create a new file for the P&E sheets. So I'll go to FDOT and use my create file tool here. Do the plan and elevation DGN, give it a drawing or bridge number 1 and the unique identifier here for a file sequence number that I know I don't have in there already. And I want to make sure that my seed file is actually 3D1, so I'm going to copy this file path so I can quickly paste it in here to get to where those seed files are at. And it's actually already there, so I'll just go ahead and click on the structure C3D file and open. Everything else looks good, so I'll create file and open. Once that file is open, I'm going to go ahead and close my view 2, maximize view 1, and I'm going to start off by changing the name of this design model that I'm in here. I'll kind of explain why later, but I'm just going to call this plan for now, all uppercase. And then first thing I'm going to do is just reference in my bridge model file. So I'm going to go to references and attach reference, attach my main bridge model. And I'll use the nesting depth of 2 to make sure I get in all my references that I need. Hit OK. And that's going to come in here. I'm going to go ahead and fit view to see where that bridge is at. And that looks good. And I noticed my I'm seeing colors here and line weights that I didn't want to see because my my motif files, the settings didn't come in, so those level overrides didn't come in, and that's just because of the view attributes here. So if I go to my view attributes, turn on level overrides for this view attributes, then I can see the motif file like the way I want it to. So that looks good. And then I'm also going to turn on an annotation scale here. I'm going to take a guess here, probably something like 1 to 30. So I'll go to report to drawings. Scroll down here, go to 1 to 30, and sure enough, yeah, that looks like a pretty good annotation scale for me. And that looks good. And again, I'm going to go ahead and do save settings. Anytime I change things, the view or levels like that, you always want to do save settings. Now, the first thing that we're going to look at here when we're creating our plan sheets is, what do I want to use? What elements I want to use to create the plan sheets? Now, OBM has these lofted deck elements, or they use a kind of a sweep or loft kind of function. And when they do that with this complex deck geometry, you get some internal, I call them internal lofting lines or internal sweep lines here. And if I were to go to like an illustration, ignore lighting, those don't exist. I don't see those there. So if I go back into wireframe, I do see those there. So what does this mean? Well, I don't want to see these in my plan view because those aren't really part of the deck, and that could be kind of confusing. So I actually like turning off all of my 3D elements and just using my 2D decoration level elements for my plan view. So in order to do that, let's just go over to level display. And I'm going to click on my main model here, and I'm going to open up that drop down a little bit here just so I can only see the levels in that main model. And I'm going to start off by doing a right click and all off, just because it's easier to start off with them all off. And then I'm going to turn on some things that I want, such as the, let's get the barrier, 2D barriers. Let's get the deck outline turned on here, and then the support line. Let's get those support lines in there. And I won't turn on the text for the support lines because I'm going to put some, my own labels on there later. So that's all I really want: the barrier outline, deck outline, and the support lines for now. And again, whenever you're turning on and off levels, make sure you hit Control F for save settings. So now we're in good shape, right? Now now we have what we want to see in our plan view here. And I'm going to go ahead and go to name boundary. And the first thing you're going to see here, you might not see any kind of seeds here. So first thing I want to do is select the seed you want. And we have a couple different options here. So we're doing a P&E sheet. So we're going to use one of these P&E plan sizes. PE large is going to be basically take up the full width of the sheet border, from left border to right border, and the medium is going to be give us about an inch or two, in between the sheet border and the drawing boundary for the plan view, and then small is going to give us a couple more inches, beyond that. So I'm going to go ahead and choose small, and this is kind of a trial and error, between choosing your drawing boundary seeds and the detail scale here. This is kind of a trial and error. So, I like that 1:30 scale. I'm going to start with that. I think that's probably a good starting point. I'm going to go ahead and click on my alignments, and then when I do that, it populates the name of the group here. So I'm going to start off by changing this to plan, because this is really a plan view group that I'm creating here. And I'm going to change the view name to plan 1. The number is important here because if I have multiple sheets, then the program will automatically change this to 2 or 3 or 4 for the subsequent sheets that it creates, and we'll see that in just a little bit here. And another thing too, I don't want to do match lines necessarily for this plan set, so I'm going to do an overlap here, so I don't need those. So I'm going to just do 50-foot overlap. Usually somewhere between 30 and 60 is going to get you what you need, but everything looks pretty good here. So let's see what this gives us. I'm going to kind of click somewhere near the beginning of the bridge, because that overlap is going to then place the first boundary line a little further back, because I have that overlap turned on. So I'll go somewhere like right there, and see how it kind of pops further back behind the approach slab there. That looks good. So I have about 1 and then 2, and you can see that overlap of the name boundaries as I keep going forward here. And then 3, looks like we got a total of 3 name boundaries. So that's perfect, and that gets me the extent of my bridge, not too far past. So that looks good. I don't want to create a drawing yet. I'm going to uncheck that, and everything still looks good. So I'm just going to left click somewhere around here to accept, or to kind of stop creating those boundaries, and then I see the preview of those 3 boundaries here. I'm going to left click to accept those, and then it does go ahead and create those boundaries, and there is a transparency turn on, so it's kind of hard to see. You kind of have to zoom in and see those transparency name boundaries here, but they are there. So now we are ready to go ahead and do the civil profile tool to get our elevation. And this tool is just a slice of the bridge, so that's the slice that we can't really specify a depth with. And because we can't specify a depth with this tool, a slice really doesn't do us any good, because we want to see more elements than just what are along this alignment here, right? We want to see the girders, the barrier, piles in the substructure, everything. And chances of all those elements lining up perfectly with the alignment, or even an offset of the alignment, is slim to none. So what we can really use this tool for, though, is to create our ground line, like kind of our terrain elevation view, and then add and to create our automatic elevation grid for us, and then we can do another tool later on to do the bridge elevation view. So I like calling this terrain 1, again, because it is more of just used for terrain, creating that ground line for me. From plan group is good, and I want to make sure my drawing seed matches my whatever seed I use for my plan view, so that the boundaries are lined up. So I'm going to do PE elevation small, and 1:30 is the one I had before, and this looks good. Now I need to open up a profile view to go to click on my profile, so I will go to the Civil tab and open Profile Model, and I'm going to open up another view. I like having both the plan view and the profile view open at the same time, and we'll see why in just a second. I don't want this display style, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to wireframe. Even go to top view, not that matters too much here, but now I'm going to go ahead and open profile one more time here, click on my alignments, and then I'm going to click in the open plan view, or so the open view to window over here. And then we can see the profile view over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a 3D cut. I need to make a cut or a slice through this to get my terrain. So I'm going to use this create 3D cut. I'm going to use the by corners, and I like this is why I have this profile view and my plan view open, because on the left I can see that where I'm at in my profile, it shows me my plan view, so I know where I need a cut for my bridge basically. So I'll zoom out a little bit so I can see a little bit better. I'm going to get a little bit before my bridge and then above the alignment, so like right there's probably good. That's my starting point. And I actually need to go a little further above, because I need to get up here. So I'm going to go start over, and let's go like right about here. And then I need to go past my bridge, look at my plan to be on the left. That looks good. I'm gonna make sure I go down far enough to get some, cut through that terrain. Left click to accept that. And then this is gonna go ahead and slice through that terrain or whatever is active in that model. Remember, I turned off all my 3D elements, so the only thing it should be grabbing is the terrain file that's also part of this. And it might be grabbing some other stuff like the survey files, the motif file, but if that happens, then we can go ahead and just turn that stuff off. So I do see that in there, got the terrain, and it's going to have some aspect ratios, kind of a vertical exaggeration. I can hold the control button, middle mouse wheel to kind of make that a little bit flatter, more normal to what I'm needing here. And we can see kind of some of the stuff it cut through. Right? This is some survey file here. There's some other stuff down here that we need to turn off. You know, it automatically put some kind of annotation up here, but that's fine. Again, we're only interested in the terrain file at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and turn level off by element. I'm going to start clicking on some things here, and you might not see it turn off automatically. What we're going to have to do is a refresh of the 3D cut, so I'm just going to start clicking on these things that I want to turn off here. And some utilities, those are good, but I will kind of go ahead and turn off some of this other stuff. Again, not anything you have to do, but if you just want to make sure it's nice and clean, I'm just going to go ahead and click on these things. And again, once I turn off that, or refresh that 3D cut, we should see these things disappear. And that's good enough for this demonstration, probably. And now I do my refresh 3D cuts. And a lot of that stuff that I was clicking on with that turn level off by element tool should go ahead and disappear. Looks like we got a lot of it, but not all of it. So let's go ahead and turn off some of this other stuff. Do refresh 3D cut one more time. And there we go, that looks good. So I got what I need, right? I just all I'm using this for is my terrain at this point. So that's nice. And then I'm gonna go ahead and use that name boundary tool again. So place name boundary. And now that I've done the 3D cut, now is when I can go ahead and use that civil profile tool. So P elevation small, I want to match my plan seed file. Same thing with the detail scale, I want to match that. Terrain, that looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the profile. And then I'm also going to rename this to terrain. Whenever you select that profile, it's going to grab the name of the profile for that by default. Plan or methods can be from plan group, so that's going to be automatic. Create drawing is turned on, and look at this, and that looks pretty good. One thing you'll notice though is that there's no overlap here. So that overlap that I specified for the plan view does not translate over here. So I'll go in here and adjust these manually afterwards, but that's fine, that doesn't take too long. So that all looks good, and I'm gonna go ahead and left click to accept. Let it do its thing. I should get a dialog popping up here in just a second. And I'm going to go ahead and rename all my views and drawing models. Take off the plan group and elevation group names. These are going to be plan and elevation 1. These are my sheet models. Make sure our scales are what they need to be. 1 to 30s on all these. The annotation scale of the sheet models are always 1 to 1. And let's go ahead and use our annotation groups. Some of these are a work in progress here, but we'll use whatever we have. All right, everything looks good. Detail scales, annotation scales, perfect. PE small, and yep, that looks perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit OK and let it run. And what this is gonna do is create my saved views, my drawing models for both plan and profile or elevation views, whatever you call it, and put those on that sheet model in wherever the drawing boundary was in the seed file. And we can see the progress of that kind of down here. Little green bar here will go, it's pretty quick most of the time. I mean, this is 3 sheets and the profiles, cutting through a lot of stuff here. So this might take, a couple seconds here, but this bar should jump pretty quick here. It'll jump up and finish here in just a couple seconds. All right, so it looks good. So we got our sheets, and let's kind of go in here and see what all it created here. So we have our plan design model. It created 3 different plan drawing models, and see how it automatically numbered them correctly. Created 3 different terrain drawing models, which really are what they call the profile view, but I'm calling it the terrain since we're just using it to generate our terrain for now. And the sheet models, all named just the way we want them. And remember, we're going to have to go in here and do some cleanup, right? Because some of like the level overrides and on the seed files weren't turned on, so I have to go and turn the level overrides on in some of the reference presentations of the references. But that's fine, I can go and do that. And again, I need to go and adjust the profile name boundaries in order to get the overlap distance. Remember, we specified an overlap for our plan view, but it didn't translate into our elevation view here. So we will need to go back and fix that, and we can go ahead and do that now. Alright, so let's go ahead and start that cleanup process here. And we'll just do it with 1 sheet for now. No point doing the same thing on all the other sheets. So let's go into, let's say, plan 1 here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get that motif file level overrides back on what I need them to be. So I'm going to go to my references, click on that reference, go to open the set reference presentation, and I want to turn on those level overrides there and hit OK. And now we see that looks better. That's back to normal there. And then let's go into let's go back to the plan sheet real quick and see what else we want to go ahead in there and fix. Okay, yeah, that's right. We need to go in and fix those name boundaries for the civil profile, right? We need to extend these out. And it should probably be just 25 feet on each side because there's a total of 50-foot overlap, if I remember right. So let's go back to plan view. And actually the multi-model views here so we can get that profile view back open. And then here is where I can see those name boundaries here. So I'm going to go ahead and select him, and I'm just going to move him over. And I'm just going to type in 25. Let him do some thinking here, and that works. And then I'm going to move this side over 25 as well, locking in that AccuDraw compass. And then now those are updated. At least that first one is here. We'll do that. We'd have to do that for all 3 of them here. But I'm going to go back to my plan view, my sheet, and that looks better there. So I do finally have those back over there. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to move my scales over and then turn off some of this other stuff that I don't want to see here in the elevation view. So I'm going to go to my terrain 1, that's the profile view, and then I'll just grab, actually I'm going to turn off some of this other stuff in here. So let's do right click, turn level off by element, turn off the cut volume here, see if we can't turn off some of this automatic text. Looks like we can't, but that's fine. Well, another way we can do that is by going back to that multi-model view, so I can open up my profile again. And I only want the terrain. I don't need to grab all of this other stuff in the cut here, so I can actually just grab this, bring him down to below, so I don't need to see any of that stuff. And let's refresh that 3D cut. And that looks better. So now I'm going to go back to my terrain 1 elevation view, and that's perfect. So now all I got left is this guy here, which I can just turn off with the right click, turn level off by element, select him. And then remember to do save settings. I always do save settings. And whenever I turn levels off in the drawing models as well, I like to go into the reference that's being referenced in here and the reference presentation. And since I made a change in here, I want to basically push this change to the saved views. Remember, this is all the dynamic view workflow, right? So these saved views get generated, and the saved view gets referenced in this drawing model here. So I want to update that saved view. I'm going to accept the changes that I made in here and then push it to the saved view. And then while I'm in here, I'm going to go ahead and select my scale and then deselect the terrain. I don't want to move him. I want to just move the scale over to just outside the boundary. Same thing for this one. Just outside the boundary. That looks good. And now let's take a look at what that PNE sheet looks like. Much better. So now we got the terrain, we got some of our utilities we got cut through down there, so that's perfect. Plan view is looking good. And one thing I'll just kind of fix real quick here too, these drawing boundary names, this is a placeholder here. So if I go to click on that drawing boundary, go to properties, it's going to be the drawing boundary name. So I can just change this to plan. And that's what's controlling the text in there. Change this one to elevation. And that looks good. So now that we got the plan view and the elevation view, at least for the terrain, set up with our scale here, now we need to figure out how to get our bridge in here for the elevation view and how we want it to look. So we do need to go ahead and make a new design model, because remember the plan design model we created, well, I turned off all the 3D elements in here, so I need to create a new one with those turned on. And then I'm also going to need to reference in this file here, this plan design model inside this DGN, because I want to be able to get these name boundaries here for guidelines for my section callout tool. So I'm going to go into my models and new file, design from seeds, structures seed 3D is perfect. I'm going to call this one elevation. Don't need to be a cell, so that looks good. I'm going to hit OK. And we see the elevation model is created. I'm going to close that, maximize that, and then I'm going to go back to my references, and I'm going to reference in two things. Remember, we're going to reference the main model file, and I also want to reference in the file that I'm in, the plan view model. So plan elevation 02, I'm going to select him as well, and open. And then for the model, I don't need any live nesting on. Right, I just want the elements that are in there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK for that. And then same thing with this one. I want to reference in the plan model, the plan design model. And no nesting, perfect. Hit OK. Fit view. Now we got just the bridge model and then the boundaries here. So those are perfect. That's exactly what I need. So now I'm going to go ahead and go switch to the drawing workflow. And let's go to annotate. Now I'm going to use the section callout tool here. And I want to use a specific one here. The way these seed files are set up with the section callout, they're set up based on the display styles that we want. So these FDOT solids are going to have a solid display style, which is actually what we want for this particular case. Or we could do a hidden or a wireframe. But I'm going to use the 01 FDOT solid, no sheet number. And any of the solids would honestly be fine in this application here. Height from view, create drawing. And this is why I referenced in this the plan view design model, because I wanted these name boundaries. Those are kind of my targets. So I'm going to click that first point, and then I'm going to go find my second point of my overlapped name boundary here. And then I'm going to set the depth. I'm going to go past the extents of the bridge here. Left click to accept. And I don't want to create a sheet model. I'm going to put it on an existing sheet model, the one that I already created. I'm going to call this elevation 1 to match the nomenclature for the other sheets. I will create the drawing model, and I'm going to use this as a 1:30 scale, just like we had before. So that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And then that is going to be lined up with our plan view, so that looks good. But let's go real quick and adjust those this section call tool we did, because we do want it to actually capture the full extents of the name boundary. And we had to snap down here because as a starting point. But let's go ahead and click on that section callout tool, grab the handle, and let's pull it out and actually get it to whatever the controlling point is in terms of how the bridge is curved or whatever. So in my case, it's going to be up here. I'm going to snap it out to the beginning left point of that boundary, and then same thing over here. I'm going to grab that pink handle, and I'm going to extend him to that point right here. It's kind of hard to see because that transparency is on there, but it's right there. So now that's going to be matching up my plan view with my elevation view much better. If I wanted to see those section call out arrows for whatever reason, I could just turn on the annotation scale in this design model here. Switch it to that 1 to 30 we've been using. And then you can see what we got here. So let's go back into that elevation view though and see what that looks like. Now this is a curved bridge, so we are going to see the curvature in here, and it's going to be a perspective view, right? Because what this is like is if somebody was basically standing right, here, looking in this direction, that's what they're going to see. So it's not that kind of unrealistic, flattened out version of the bridge that we're used to seeing, right? You're going to see what someone would see if they were standing back here. But that's fine. It meets all the the requirements for SDM, SDG. So one thing I do like to do is go in and adjust that name boundary or not the name boundary, but the section callout clip volume for what I want it to be in terms of, and I don't want to see all the stuff down here. I don't necessarily need to see all the pile lengths down here. So I'm going to go back to my elevation model here. I'll switch to a front view, so shift right click, F for front. And then I'm going to grab that named bound, the elevation section callout that I just placed, right? And I'm going to drag him up. I'm going to get the bottom handle here and just bring him up roughly somewhere where I know I want it to be. Somewhere we're cutting off just below the footing, we get the piles. Back to that top view, and let's go now back to that elevation drawing model to see what that looks like. So now we got that cut off there. That looks good, and now I can go ahead and annotate this thing as I normally would. Personally, what I like to do is draw some lines in here and then just dimension from there. But I'll save that for another video. I'll just kind of finish up this workflow here. But at this point, you have a 2D view, and you're just going to do your normal annotations for an elevation view of bridge. And same thing with the plan view. I'll show how we do our annotations in another video. But how do we get this onto that sheet model? Let's go back to the sheet model, and let's go into our models, and then the elevation drawing model here. I'm just going to click and drag him onto my screen here. Use the recommended attachment method, and then I'm going to just click somewhere down below here, below my sheet model, just so I can kind of see where he gets placed. And then from here, this is just a reference. And actually now, I noticed here too, when I did that, my clip volume didn't get updated in here. So let's go back and see if we can't fix that. And it looks like it did not get updated here. Let's try one thing here. Let's go into the reference presentation, and let's try updating from saved view. Hitting OK, see if that doesn't fix that. Did not. So let's do a little bit more investigation here. Let's go back into here, make sure that clip volume did get adjusted like we wanted it to. I'll select that section callout, go to a front view. Sometimes the pop-up doesn't work so well, so you got to go over here and do front view. And it didn't. For some reason that didn't save. So let's go in here and adjust that again. Maybe we got to do save settings here. So let's go and bring that back up there and go to top view. Control F for save settings. Check out the drawing model. Much better. That looks better. Now let's go see how that looks on our sheet model, which we already placed it on. And there we go. That's better. So yeah, forgot to do save settings there. When we adjusted that clip volume. So this one, I got to move this up here, and I could just go ahead and since this is the drawing boundary, it's associated with the terrain profile. That's kind of the one that I don't really need to use. So I can either delete them or drag them off to the side. For this case here, I'll just kind of drag them down here just to get that view title out of the way there. And then this is just a reference, so I'm gonna right click and move reference. I'm gonna first move them horizontally, so I'm gonna line them up. I'm gonna line up that begin approach slab. I'm gonna lock in my horizontal axis, and I'm just gonna snap to something in the plan view here. Close counts in this case. So that's horizontally the way I need it. And then let's really quickly go into that elevation view again. Let's get a reference elevation of something that we can use, like a top of a footing is a good example. So I'll zoom in here and I'll kind of tentative to the top of that footing. That's an 80 foot. That's perfect. That's a nice even number. I'll go into my P&E sheet again here. And I'm going to right click on that reference. Right click and hold down. Sorry, right click and hold down. I'm going to move reference. Go from the top of that footing. Lock it in. Lock my horizontal so I can't mess it up horizontally. I'm only moving it vertically here. And then I'm just going to snap to that 80 tick mark for the elevation. So that should be exactly where that needs to be. And that looks pretty darn good there. So there's some other adjustments we need to make, right? We can go in here and adjust this scale. So we can go and move that. We'll go back to our drawing model and move that back over here. We'll do that real quick. Actually, that was in the terrain one. So I'm going to grab all of that and just do a move. See how that looks now on the sheet model. And we could just activate that reference on the sheet model too, right? We could just do this. We could just right click on this and say activate, and that's going to gray out everything else. And then I'm basically in that drawing model now. So now I can go in here, and if I stop lag, and I can select all that scale, and I can move it here in my sheet model, but technically I'm activated in the drawing model. Right, so that's another way you can do it, so you don't have to navigate back and forth. And then just right click and deactivate. So that looks pretty good. Everything's lined up just the way I need it, and that's it. That's my P&E sheet. And then lastly, let's just go ahead and print this to PDF and see what this looks like. Those drawing boundaries, right? Those dashed, ones there that are kind of have a transparency turned on. Those are on a non-plotting level, so those won't show up. But I'm gonna go ahead and click or select the FDOT PDF and print to file. And just save it somewhere local here. That's fine. Open it up, see what it looks like. And here we go. So again, I didn't do any of those normal annotations in terms of dimensions and normal things you see on the the P&E sheets here, but just want to give a general overview of the workflow and how best to do this. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and give it a like and share with everyone else. And see you guys in the next video.